On the circular cushion, we're going to actually put a exposed zip which runs across the whole diameter of the circular cushion. What we're going to do though is we're going to make sure that the zip finishes within the perimeter stitching so as there's no bulk caused in the seam by the zip. Let's measure what we need to cut for panels. We need a pair of panels. So we need about 1 inch and a bit more than our width and 1 inch and a bit, let's say 1.5 inches, 2 inches more than our full diameter. So let's lay up a pair of backing linings and a pair of cushion backs and just cut out 2 pair of each, so they're going to be 8.5 by 15. So half our cushion plus an extra inch at either end, and then half the width of the cushion plus an extra inch either end. So for this cushion it is 8.5 by 15. Using the grids on our cutting mat to actually true up our Teru square, just to make sure that is nice and symmetrical. Right, so here we have 2 pair. A pair of backs and a pair of linings. And we've got some tabs, 1.25 inches by about 2.5, 3 inches. Now those tabs are going to cover the end of our raw ends of our zips when we place that onto the fabric. So we've put our placement line onto our tearaway stabilizer. We're going to attach our zip between the 2 parallel lines using some washi tape. Keep the zip firm. If it's not firm, it's going to actually crease while it's stitching. Okay, so that's got a little bit of movement in that last section, so let's just lift that up and then re-stick that. And keep an eye on that zip puller. Back to the machine, and then let's put our left and right rows of stitching, which you can see we've done. Remove the washi tape from the zip area. Then we're going to return the hoop to the machine and put the markers for the tabs that will go on, the cloth tabs that will go on the end of the zip. So we're going to put a marker there and a marker there, but we'll need to actually run our zip up into the middle of our hoop so as it doesn't get in the way. And then we go back to the machine and you'll see, okay, so the line of stitching there and a line of stitching there. And so that is basically the full width of our zip opening. And we're going to place, so turning the hoop over, we're going to place the tab fabric or the cover fabric on the back, right side down, wrong side up, and just tape it into position. Now we've got about quarter to 3/8 of an inch past that stitching tacking line that we just put in. Okay, then over to the front and do the same thing. Tab fabric, right side down. Tab fabric, right side down. And it's going to go about quarter to 3/8 of an inch past that stitching line. Now let's go and stitch those with the machine. So it's through all layers. And all it is just going to stitch across the end of the zip. Through the teeth, through all those layers of the tab fabric. Then those tab fabrics will be unstuck, and then we're just going to take our washi tape off, and same with the back, washi tape off, and they're just going to be folded tautly back onto themselves so it's then the right side exposed and taped into place for them to have a final square of stitching placed around them. Okay, right side now. Before we go any further though, let's trim the ends of our zips back to just under 1/4 of an inch to the stitching, and then stick those tabs, those cloth tabs, onto the hoop end. That's probably not quite tight enough. Make sure it's quite taut, and we want to just cut that zip end off. Now back to the machine, and we're going to stitch just a little square, well, a little cap square over the top of it, and you'll see when we come to stitch it, you see it's just in there, so it's just covering the trimmed edge of the zip teeth. Okay, so we've done it back and front. We're going to be working on the right side of the zip first, so we're going to be putting our piece of backing onto the zip lining, and that edge of that backing goes to 1/4 inch past our zip stitching line. Make sure it's centralized. Make sure we know where our zip is. Now our zip's been tacked down or been stuck down. Turn the hoop over one more time and let's fold that excess lining back onto itself, both top and bottom. We can just stick that with a bit of washi tape temporarily. It just has to stay out of the hooping mechanism, that's all. I'm just going to put a couple of pins in through all those layers, just to hold it into place temporarily while we stitch that single seam through the back and the front fabric sections. So fabric A and lining 1. So we stitch down that edge, so it's just 1/4 inch. Take our washi tape off. Take our pins out. Finger press that. Now see how the zip has got a lovely frame at the end of itself. Do the same for the back. Try and reuse a piece of washi tape if you can, but when you're using a tearaway stabilizer, the fluff on the tearaways, it really does stop the washi tape from actually being reused. So lightly finger press, don't press too hard because we've got stabilizer in that hoop. Just going to stick that very temporarily. Finger press that into place if you need to, and then just pin that back through all layers to create that top piece of fabric quite taut against the stitch line when it's attached to that zipper, because we're going to put some top stitching, a triple stitch top stitching along that zipper edge through down here. So it's triple stitch. Excellent. So now we're going to do the other side. Just turn that zip puller to the other side. And we're going to put our last piece of lining or backing to the underside of our hoop. Remember, these squares we've cut are all the same size, so it's not like there's anything specific. We've chosen to have this exposed zip through the middle of our cushion due to its round shape. Now that doesn't have to be caught because that's on an outer edge. And then our final piece of fabric will go on, so as that cut edge 1/4 inch past our zip stitching line, into position, into the machine. And there we have stitched that stitching line there, just along that left hand side of that top piece of fabric, just 1/4 of an inch, and then that's, when we open that up, that frames the zip. Take the washi tape off the remaining underlining side. Just stick that into position for the time being, since we've got one last seam. Just going to put 3 pins along that edge, so we're pulling that fabric out taut against that zip seam in preparation for our triple stitch. Right. Just make sure you know where that zip puller is, because we may need to actually just play with that puller, move it, stop our stitching and move it, just to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of the foot. The brother foot is a little bit wider than the other brands, so it may just, we don't want it to actually pull the zip out, so bring that down and carry on up. Otherwise it will give us a blip in our stitching. Easy to see, easy to do. Right, now let's get on with taking all the elements out of the hoop, counting out our pins, getting rid of our washi tape, and also eventually removing our tearaway stabilizer. Our tearaway that we use is our own brand of Essentials tearaway. It is quite firm and robust, so it's not going to perforate easily along the edge of our work. So remove the zip and linings out of the hoop. Let's tear our tearaway from our zip. Find all the hidden pieces of washi tape. Those stitching lines that are coming through on our stabilizer are our placement lines. One more thing before we actually complete is we need to actually take out the strip of tearaway stabilizer that's keeping the zip closed, because we need that zip to be open for the next stage of completing our cushion. And as I've said, our stabilizer is quite robust, so there may be some little feathers of stabilizer we need to pick off the edge of our zip. I'd much rather do this than find that it's perforated away from the zip while the work is still in the hoop. There we go. Need to give that a light press. Now you can fold those, and you could actually stitch around the edge of those if you've got a lot of fabric or your cushion is wider than your largest hoop. Just stitch along the edges of those ends so as they are all connected. There's no holes. Right, we've lightly pressed this. Our zip puller in the middle of our zip, and we have a piece of washi tape keeping that closed. We need to centralize our zip over the center seam of our cushion, which we've chosen. Make sure that it is symmetrical and it has been centered well, so it means the same amount of distance from the perimeter stitching line towards where the zip finishes at each end. And we're just going to place a pin in each of the segments, and then we're going to just make sure that our centers are on centers. And one more. And then we're going to stitch all the way around the edge of the perimeter stitching line that's already in there, just on the inside of it. Take our piece of tape off. Our zip is movable. Then we're going to place our second piece of lining. We want the same shape, right sides together. And we're going to stitch around and leave one segment open. See, one segment's been left open to pull this through, because we're going to finish, or we're going to have a double lined cushion, so the front panel of the join panels is lined, and so is the zip panel lined. So when it's all pulled out, there's no raw seams inside your cushion. It's a lovely, beautiful finish. Very, very simple to do. So we're trimming back what I call a very slight 1/4 of an inch, or a shy 1/4 of an inch. No need to clip into your seams, just make sure that those seam intersections aren't too pointy. Then find our open segment and pull our work through, so birthing the pillow. So it is going to be inside out, but it's going to have a lining on both sides. We're not going to see the front panel just yet, because we need to do a second turn through the zip. So while we've got it at this stage, we want to fold those edges in and hand stitch that little segment closed. I've used the contrast thread so you can see what I've done. And then we're going to turn this through one more time, so you have a fully lined cushion waiting for its insert. And very simple, centralized zip, covered ends. The tabs have covered the ends. There's no zip teeth going into our seam allowance. A lovely way of finishing a cushion cover.